Hello and welcome to MCN. We're in southern Spain today at the Seville circuit and we're riding Ducati's brand new Panigale V2. Now, this could herald a new era in supersport, both as a road bike and a racer. We're going to be riding the S model today, which has got Öhlins suspension, which is a shade under £17,000. There's also a base model, which is just under £15,000. And before we hit the track, let's dive a little deeper into what makes this brand new model tick. The Panigale V2 has been designed from a clean sheet, starting with the engine. The new 118 bhp 890cc motor is the firm's lightest and most compact V-twin and weighs 9.5 kilos less than the old Panigale V2's 153 bhp Super Quattro lump. It's far less powerful, but Ducati says it's been designed more for the street than the track. The new engine is rotated 20 degrees back for optimal weight distribution and has variable intake valve timing and hollow stem valves for reduced inertia. Spring actuated valves replace Ducati's traditional Desmo system as seen on the current Multistrada V4. Underseat exhaust cans are reminiscent of their factory superbikes and the 1299 Panigale Final Edition, and its 96 by 61.5mm bore and stroke sits somewhere between the old short stroke Super Quattro V2 and the longer stroke 937cc 113 bhp Testa Stretta that powered everything from the Monster to the Supersport 950 and Desert X. Ducati claims 53 mpg and 175 mile range, but we'll put that to the test when the bike arrives in the UK. The new engine is set to power the new 2025 Street Fighter V2 and the Multistrada V2, which is retuned to 114 bhp, but expect it to roll out to the wider range next year. IMU controlled electronic rider aids include lean sensitive traction, wheelie and engine brake control, an up and down quick shifter, 3-stage ABS and 4 riding modes: race, sport, road and wet. A pit lane speed limiter and launch control are also available as accessories. You get a new 5-inch TFT colour dash with a 16:9 aspect ratios with 3 display modes: road, road pro and track, prioritising the relevant information you need. The chassis is similar to before in that it uses a cast aluminium monocoque airbox frame, but this has cutouts for flex and weighs just 4 kilos. The engine is still a stressed member. It's out with the old V2's single-sided swing arm and in with a delicate V4 Panigale style hollow double-sider for less weight and more flex. New 17-inch wheels have a Y-shaped spoke design and they're shod with Pirelli Diablo Rosso 4 tyres. The rear has gone up in size from the old V2's 180/60 to a 190/55. It makes 118 bhp at 10,750 rpm and 69 pound-foot of torque at 8,250 rpm. Right, we're a couple of sessions in on the Panigale V2. First impressions, it's just so easy to ride. You know, unlike a superbike, it's not trying to beat you up and wrestle you everywhere. It's just a delight. It's just got just the right amount of power. 118 bhp doesn't sound a lot, but it still is in a lightweight bike. And that leaves you just to concentrate on having fun. You know, just to nibble away your braking markers, carry a little bit more corner speed, get on the throttle ever sooner. It's just a joy to ride. And yeah, the laps are ticking by really quick. You're not looking for the checker flag sometimes like you are on a superbike because they absolutely rinse you. But we're on this new track in Seville. We're on a brand new bike. So why don't we let Ducati test rider Alessandro Valia take you for an onboard lap. It's the morning after, the day before, and I'm just thinking back on how great this was to ride around the Seville circuit. The big takeaway point, as we said at the beginning, was really how easy this bike is to ride. And after 6 sessions, I could have done another 6 sessions. And I definitely couldn't have said that about the V4 Panigale that I rode at Vallelunga last year, where it felt like I'd done 12 rounds with Tyson at the end of the day, both Mike and Fury. So this is a bike, a super sport bike, that you can just enjoy. You can ride to your limit, lap after lap after lap, and you come away feeling refreshed and not beaten up. In terms of placing this bike, it kind of looks like a little bit the old Super Sport 950. It's obviously got the name of the Panigale V2, and in truth it's kind of a cross between the two. The riding position and the ergonomics and the power is very similar to the Super Sport. The Super Sport made 113 bhp, this is 118. So it's kind of quite easy to ride. It adds to that user friendliness, but in terms of pure performance, it is on par with the Panigale V2, the old one. The old one was a fantastic bike, maybe a little bit heavy, maybe a little bit slow steering, but succeeded really nicely in racing trim, won the World Super Sport Championship twice, actually with a 70% throttle restriction due to balancing rules, so it can only make 70% of its power, but it still won. And Ducati say, because this bike is built as a Panigale V2 from the ground up, and it's not a sleeve down super bike, they could make it as light and compact as possible. And that's why it is so quick, because it can use the power it's got really effectively. In the hands of one of their test riders, it's fractionally slower than the old bike, and the old bike's got 35 bhp more. In the hands of a normal rider, an amateur track day rider, it's actually faster. Ducati say, as they would do, that Marc Marquez loves this bike. He rode the old Panigale with Olin suspension and a proper race setup in training earlier in the year. And when he jumped on this, he was almost as fast in standard trim, in standard S trim. This has got Olins as well. Yeah, Ducati would say that, wouldn't they? But, you know, Marquez looked like he was having a lot of fun on it. So in terms of placement, it's got the performance of the old V2 and the kind of the friendliness of the Super Sport 950. Talking of riding positions, it's very roomy, like all Ducatis are, especially in the leg area, and you still got lots of ground clearance, but the clip-ons are actually raised. They're 60mm higher than they were on the old V2, and the bars are really wide and really flat. So you've got a lot of space to move around. And again, Ducati comparing this to their MotoGP program, they say that their MotoGP bikes have got much higher bars than you'd ever imagine, because the riders have got to brace themselves against this extreme forces when they jam on those carbon brakes. So they have quite high bars, to the extent that when some of those riders use V4 Panigales as training bikes, they think that the bars are too low. So maybe in the future we'll see a Panigale V4 with bars as high as these. On track, this bike is very, very capable. It is a super sport bike in the terms of the amount of excitement it gives you. The engine has only got 118 bhp, but because it weighs 176 kilos wet with no fuel, it's very quick in the first 3 gears. If you don't have the wheelie control turned on, it will wheelie off the power. Fast in a straight line. I mean, Seville circuit, it's not a very fast track. You're probably flat out in 5th gear, but you're still getting a wiggle on. And then, like all super sport bikes, this is brilliant in the corners. Massive stability at full lean in really fast corners. Superb agility. It hits apexes like a pinball, and fantastic brakes. The brakes on this, although they're not stylimers, they're M50s, are just incredible. All Ducati brakes are incredible. The amount of feel, the amount of power, the stability as well. This airbox frame, which is similar to the old Panigale V2s, is very, very stiff where it needs to be in a straight line, but it's got cutouts in it, so it's got flex at full lean. And the braking power is more than you can manage as an amateur. It's fantastic, especially with the slicks that were fitted to this bike for our test. The normal tyres, it comes on Pirelli Diablo Rosso 4s. But yeah, the braking power is immense, and it's got 3-stage ABS system, and one of the ABS modes disconnects the rear ABS, and one uses slide by brake, they call it. So you can jam on the back brake and you can back it in. And that's something that test rider Alessandro Valia has developed, because he knows that the difference between a pro and an amateur is the pros use back brakes a lot nowadays, and he wanted to let an amateur be able to use a back brake in safety, so the electronics help you slide it into a corner. Maybe fast around a track. Okay, a superbike would probably lap faster over a couple of laps, but you know, if you rode this bike all day, you'd be faster by the end of the day, just because you can just keep riding it and it doesn't tire you out. It is good fun. The corner speed it generates, the braking, the fact it will pop a little cheeky wheelie in the first couple of gears when you come out of a corner. It's a really, really fun bike, and because you can ride it closer to its limit, it makes you feel like you're in charge. It makes you feel like you're the racing god. And when you ride a 1000, quite often, it leaves you feeling a little bit unfulfilled, because the bike, if you really admit it to yourself, is a lot better than you are. So it is a lot of fun to ride this bike on track. We were riding with lots of other bikes the same, so that's good fun. I think in a track day scenario, when you've got super bikes absolutely piling by you with 100 bhp more, it's a little bit scary. It would be a little bit scary. You know, we've said it before, I think track days need to have groups without super bikes, and you'll be able to enjoy new generation super sport bikes like this, and even smaller R7s and RS660s and the like, and GSX R750s to the full. We didn't get to ride Panigale on the road, unfortunately, but in many ways I think it would be even more impressive. The trouble with sports bikes and race reps is that generally they're very uncomfortable, they're quite highly strung, and that's shown in sales figures. People just don't buy them anymore. They go on adventure bikes and naked bikes and everything in between. I think this could kind of herald the return of the sports bike on the road, because of the higher bars, because of the roomy riding position. Even the seat's comfortable. It's going to be a sports bike you could actually live with, you could actually probably even tour on. You can get accessories for cruise control, turn-by-turn navigation. It's got a friendly engine, it's going to have more than enough power for the road, and it's a beautiful thing as well to look at. It's a luxurious sports bike. So I think for the road it's going to be really, really good. And Ducati say also that they've tamed down the heat that pumps out from the engine that a lot of riders, Ducati riders, will know all about on V4s and V-twins. So it'll be a bit cooler to ride as well, although we didn't notice that yesterday. You don't normally notice bike heat on the track anyway, because you're whizzing through the wind so fast. So it'd be interesting to see if it was hot as it used to be. All this loveliness comes at a price, of course. £17,000 for this one, £15,000 for the lower spec one with normal suspension, still fully adjustable, a heavier battery. This comes with a single rear seat. The standard one comes with a pillion seat, and if you want the opposite one, you've got to buy them as accessories. £17,000 sounds a lot for a bike with only 118 bhp, but Ducati argue that you're paying for the performance, not necessarily outright power. And you can't deny the performance of this bike. It's on par with the old one. You can't deny the way it's built. The build quality is pure Ducati. It's not built down to a price in any way. The styling is fantastic, the paint finishes, the attention to detail, the quality of the chassis parts. If you can afford this bike, you're not going to be disappointed. One of the big questions is how it's going to stack up against the other new generation supersport bike, the Yamaha R9. The Yamaha is cheaper, a lot cheaper, 12,250. It's got the same power, more or less, 119 bhp. But it's going to be delivered in a very different way. It's a 3-cylinder compared to a twin. And if you think about the comparison between an R1 and a V4, they're almost the same lap time on track in road trim when we do our group tests. And I think that would be the case with this and the R9. There won't be a lot to split them on track. They'll just do it in very different ways. The Yamaha will be longer revving because it's got an extra cylinder. This will be more about grunt. It makes a lot of grunt, this. as you'd expect from a V-twin. The only place I think the Yamaha might suffer is in the braking department. If, you know, history shows us that everything from R1s to XSR 900s and everything in between haven't got great brakes. I hope Yamaha have improved that for the R9, but if there's any chink in its armour, I think that might be it. At the beginning of this video, we said how this may herald a new era in supersport, and I think it definitely has. Traditional supersport bikes are still available, things like CBR 600RRs, ZX6Rs, F3 800 MVs, and they're all very well, but they haven't sold very well purely because they're very single-minded and they've become very, very cramped. This is the supersport bike for the new generation. Most riders are older, they're going to find this bike a lot more comfortable. This is a very luxurious bike. It's almost a new generation super bike, not a supersport bike, because, you know, this isn't too different from a 916 in terms of outright power and performance, and definitely handles better. So, you know, this could herald a new era. It does all the supersport things really well. It's really exciting. It handles brilliantly. The ride quality is superb. The grip's there. It's a fantastic sports bike. It'd be easy to say that this is better than a V4, and I think it definitely would be on the road. I think if you're a very, very good rider, a V4 will be better on track, and if you're chasing lap times, a V4 will be better. But in terms of pure enjoyment, this is definitely it. And yes, it has rewritten the supersport class, and I hope it brings more people back into sports bikes from their adventure bikes and their naked bikes. It's a very good bike. I'm very impressed, and I had a great time on it around the track. So that's that for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you again on another one very soon.